Hey guys, here I am with the 6-part Black Squad criminal organization. Yeah. Somehow things still haven't worked out for us to really get into the motorcycle scene. Maybe we just imagined everything would be so easy. You also can't forget the clubs we're talking about. Some of them have been around since the 60s and 70s. There are also regional clubs, and they've been around since the 90s. And now a young crew comes along claiming a territory for themselves, a name, and coming up with their own colors. And then suddenly, just because they own a few motorcycles now, they want to be accepted by the entire motorcycle scene. What I forgot to mention is, of course, because of the publication in the biker news, there was no objection or anything like that. We wouldn't have allowed it anyway, but there was no other response either. Yeah, like I said, and of course the change from this neo-Nazi music subculture group, Werewolf, to the Red Devils, where we thought, but we've already been with the Red Devils for 10 months, why don't you accept us as bikers? Well, you never saw them riding around on motorcycles. How is anyone supposed to accept that? For people who really live and love riding motorcycles and show that to the outside world, and it's so important to them, and then we just show up out of nowhere. It was clear that wasn't going to work. From today's perspective, you could almost say we were offended, like why not? Hello, we've got patches now, we've got those zip-up jackets. Sure, no leather vests yet, but motorcycles and helmets, so now we're a motorcycle club. Well, okay, we all wanted to go visit everyone a bit, but for us it was also clear, okay, we're starting with our first party. And we planned that first party really quickly. It was clear it wouldn't be at the Werewolf, so we thought, where do we do it? And in the Camaraderie, Werewolf was also involved back then. What did I call him? Pop, a nice guy who was also into car tuning and stuff, yeah. He wasn't really part of the tuner scene, but he always went to the meets. He had, I don't know, maybe a Golf 3 or something lowered, but everything was kind of done in a shabby way. That's not really my thing anyway, but with the people he hung out with, so he was with us in the Werewolf Camaraderie before, then he also co-founded the Schar, but at the same time he was still in another club. I think, what were they called again? VW and Audi community or something. It was in Wismar or something like that. And they had a kind of garage where they worked on cars. Of course, he had to leave that community later because you can only give your heart to one club. And we put some pressure on him too. That just doesn't work. But of course, you can still stay friends with those people. But bro, how does it look when you're doing car tuning and stuff like that here? And then you join the 1% club here, right? That was classic group dynamics. He asked them and said, hey, who's joining this new motorcycle club, the Black Shells? And they said, yeah, it's a new motorcycle club. And who's in it? The neo-Nazis, this guy, that guy, and that guy, but also 2 or 3 outsiders who maybe aren't neo-Nazis. Well, can we have the party at your place? And they were like, yeah, okay. They had a kind of hall, a normal hall. I think it was a wooden hall, like the typical ones in the new federal states from the old state-owned companies. I don't even remember what was in there, but it doesn't matter. They already had a hall of a certain size, so I'd say, what did they already have there? Probably 300 square meters or so, or 400 with a forecourt. All nicely hidden down in a district of Wismar. What was it called again? Dagietzo. And they said, sure, you can have a party there. And then we had set a date and said, yes, we don't want this to be an official opening party yet, kind of half and half, because of course we wanted to present our customers, but none of them were ready. Then we put together this event in, I would say, 3 or 4 weeks. had a flyer designed, so the pictures from the series are now always coming in for the channel members and the sponsors, so you can always see them from the parties. Because my biggest collection of pictures and data simply exists through the Black Flock. It was also common there to take videos and pictures with smartphones and so on. In the meantime, we had things made for us, all with the logo. As I said, these hoodies, these zip-up jackets, t-shirts, and by now we had also had a big black flag printed with the color on it, Schwarze Schal, Motorcycle Club, Wismar. And then we said, okay, we have to distance ourselves a bit from this place, from Fischerstraße, where the Wolfshöhle 2 was, because we just wanted to be accepted in society. We wanted to present that and say, yes, we are apolitical. No, you don't have to be afraid anymore when you come to our parties. Because the big problem with the werewolf comradeship was that there were regular acts of violence among each other against other visitors who were there, or people passing by, or just regular violence. And we had already made that clear among ourselves. We said, we just don't want any more violence among each other, not even with others. If we have a party, anyone who acts violently will be removed by us with force, so to speak, from the party. Yeah, but we had already decided on that. The main goal was, as I said, to fit into society and, so to speak, to shed this cloak of right-wing extremism. For me, that was really very, very important, and also for many others who were previously in the werewolf. I'll put it this way, for Christian, the tattoo artist Klaus, it was important too. In my opinion, he was never really involved in right-wing extremism or right-wing radicalism anyway. He listened to the music a bit, but not very intensely or anything. But of course, there were 2 or 3, I don't want to say they resisted, but they probably stayed close to that way of thinking. For me, it was important to go through these changes during that time. Yeah, what did we plan? We also had within our network that we had an environment. Mike and I were still partners after all. He was always very, very critical of it. No, let's not make a motorcycle club, let's just make a gang and stick together like that. But of course, he always thought, okay, better to be friends with them, and why not? Who cares? I can still do my own thing and see where they end up. And then it was about us figuring out, okay, how can we organize this party? Yeah, so it shouldn't be like at Werewolf, just buying alcoholic drinks, playing the most radical music, and then going crazy. That wasn't up for debate. Instead, we wanted to offer something now. And then we tapped into all kinds of networks, and at that time, there weren't many yet. That grew and grew every month. At the Schwarze Schale, the more present we became and the more word got around. But as I said, this is dragging on a bit here. Please stay with me here because I want to explain the process of founding and how it happened to you in more detail. And then there were donations from certain people. Mike sponsored something. Then we had a friendly drug dealer who generously donated 2 shows. For example, he donated 2 strippers who then did a performance there, if you can say it like that, yeah. And yes, we set up a disc jockey booth there. We got a lot of beer benches. We organized a big buffet ourselves and we decorated the room. Just completely different from the werewolf days. And yes, then of course we did some advertising. How did that go back then? I don't even know if it was WhatsApp, short message service or emails, but of course they sent them to all kinds of clubs in the area around Rostock, Northwest Mecklenburg didn't matter. They sent invitations to all the motorcycle friends and loose groups that had some kind of contact address. They invited them and said, so here, Schwarze Schar in Christian Democratic Union, yeah, and the first party there. And there they really went all out. They also told all the members, now call all your friends, invite them and say this time it's completely different from werewolf. And we have to say that. Just 3 months ago, there was a stabbing where someone almost died. in the alley from Werewolf where we were there, and 3 months later everyone is supposed to come to our party. Big event, big event. And our mood was really good. We somehow felt new logos. We were fired up for this thing, and then we got there. Of course, we also got our girlfriends involved and their friends. You know, it was clear to us from the start, we need more women there. If there are more women, that attracts more men. That's a principle that worked really well for us later on. But the thing was, we were still kind of connected with Werewolf. We still had certain ties there. And if you've spent 6 or 7 years together before, you can't just shake that off so easily. It's a tough process and a hard thing to tell them, like, hey, no, not you. So we said, okay, fine, come by. And at that point, we hadn't told them yet, hey, wear something neutral. Because for them, something neutral would have been just taking off their Werewolf Comradeship t-shirt. To take that off and then put on a hate society or, I don't know, a free social national t-shirt. That wasn't really what we meant, but in a typical right-wing radical and right-wing extremist wardrobe, the selection of more inconspicuous clothes is pretty limited. Yeah, the party started. Was it a disappointment? At that time, no. If I look at the pictures today, yes. For us, it was still a success. We had, 50, 60, maybe 70 people there, had a cool show, and everything went pretty smoothly. The food was well received. Later, the girls danced, and we all patted ourselves on the back. And we said, how awesome, this is 1,000 times cooler than at Werewolf and so on. And we celebrated the evening, of course, before it ended somehow. And I always firmly claimed, and I have to revise that a bit, that politics didn't play a role and that there were no slip-ups within the club either. I take that back now because I briefly looked at the pictures before the video, and that brought me back to reality hard. And what it was like then, a party always has a beginning. At first it's rather stiff, then a bit of alcohol flows, then there's some laughter, and at some point it's wild around midnight, and by 1:30, only the last few people from the party are left. And of course it's the people who can hold their liquor, the ones from the Black Squad, the ones from Werewolf, and a few close friends. And who else showed up at the party, of course? Who was completely missing from this party? Yes, exactly. What was missing at this party? Write it in the comments now. Pause and... yes, bikers were missing. Bikers were missing. There were no members of motorcycle clubs there. We ourselves had our, I think, 5 motorcycles parked in that hall back then, so we could show, yes, look, we really have motorcycles. But no one came. No one from the Hells Angels Rostock, Gremium Schwerin, Stormbringer, or Warriors showed up. No one came. Whether we took that as an affront back then, no offense, but I think it was an affront, so nobody came. Of course, it could have been a statement like, you know, we don't support you, we don't acknowledge you. And if you don't get any support from the motorcycle club scene, then it'll just take care of itself. In our perception, it was still like, okay, we managed to pull in 60, 70 people here. A lot of different faces who would never have gone into Werewolf otherwise. And of course, the numbers at Werewolf already doubled. For us, it was as if we had really organized Wacken in the rock scene. That's how we felt. And then we really patted each other on the back. But reality just kicked in. No success within the motorcycle club scene. And of course, what happened at night, and you can see that in the pictures, there are 2 members of the Black Squad who can be seen in the pictures, who then also did Nazi salutes together with the Werewolf Comradeship at night. Very briefly, my own. One quick personal thing, if you want to support us, my book is out. Hate Makes Violence, Spiegel bestseller, the brand behind the product, King Among the Kongs. Check it out. There are lots of links under the video on how you can support us in our work, de-radicalization, violence prevention work on the internet and or at schools. So a lot of options. Thumbs up, thumbs down, leave a comment. All of that helps. Thank you so much, and ahoy, the video continues. And then we have Also clothes of the Black Squad and the Werewolf Comradeship. Werewolf. I'm especially interested in the pictures of the two people of a real Richard S. and Christian W. They spread such a picture on Facebook. Be tough, don't be weak, and then snitch, traitor, something like that across the forehead. And those are the two who are then spiritually acting like Hitler there. But that's how it ended. It almost turned into an argument again, especially because some of the new people who were there at the Black Ball weren't political at all and really didn't want anything to do with it, because we had promised them that there would be nothing right-wing extremist, nothing radical anymore, and then those members went and did that. And when the pictures were then reviewed, they were still taken with a digital camera back then. And then, I don't know, maybe a week later, we got them transferred onto a USB stick or burned onto a CD. Who even remembers? Yeah, and we got those pictures, and then there was a meeting about it, and it was made clear that this would be severely punished. This Abhitlen thing, and at some point there was also a decision, okay, we need to slowly distance ourselves from Werewolf. But this process still took time. It definitely took another year, a year and a half, but it made a lot of people very, very angry. But just because you make this ban, and I always say this about state bans, the people don't just disappear. And of course, that makes me think, even in retrospect, okay, how much right-wing extremist ideology was present among individual members of the Black Schar. All with this double standard. Yes, I move in the red light district, I deal drugs, I'm a fraud, I'm a liar, I cheat on my wife, and then with this double standard, but then supposedly being the fighter for the people and the fatherland. There's such blatant double standards in that again. But this mix was then seeing, okay, we have to do something about it. We addressed it in the meeting and said, yes, it can't be that only hooligans, some people from the scene, and neo-Nazis are meeting there. We won't get anywhere like that. So we had to come up with a long-term strategy and impose much tougher penalties against this behavior. So that means this catalog of penalties, which I'll show soon, has kept growing because people kept doing things. And then we created a catalog of penalties. Even political statements are punished with 500 euros or right-wing rock music is played in the clubhouse. But just including that alone means that there was already a problem. I think I closed my eyes to that, or I didn't want to see it, or maybe I was still susceptible to it myself. I can't tell you, but with that, I've revised old statements that it didn't happen with the Black Shell. But I also think that's the last time I saw someone express themselves like that in the neo-Nazi scene. Yeah, okay, somehow euphoric but disappointed. Still the motorcycle scene, nobody gets in touch. We don't really get any proper invitations. But of course, open house dates are announced. Open house dates mean that motorcycle clubs open their doors. Yeah, so their clubhouses, and anyone who wants to can go there. That's not a bad thing in principle. You can have great parties there, have something to drink, celebrate. There's usually something grilled or whatever. And yeah, there are live bands playing. And then there are also the main parties like patch parties, founding celebrations, or a lot of motorcycle clubs have themed parties, which we later had as well. And basically anyone can go there. So we said, okay, we have to get involved. And of course, we have to expand our fleet. But how? We're still talking about people here, some of whom have multiple issues. Of course, our social skills were all bad, but also debts, jobs, alcohol. All those kinds of things. Drugs weren't a big issue at that time, but where did they get all those mopeds from? My first intruder, 1,400, was passed around the club. After me, Christian, who was the vice president and tattoo guy at the time, wrote it. Then he sold it to Ditcher. And yeah, then we first had to get driver's licenses, as strange as that sounds. Of course, it wasn't mandatory to have a license, but it was better. We already valued that because we said, well, if we're riding in a pack, in a group, it's really bad if we get pulled over. As a motorcycle club, you tend to get pulled over a bit more often. And of course, it's bad if out of 12 people, only 2 have a driver's license. The other 10 have to push their bikes to the side of the road and are stopped right away. That's why we made it a rule later on. Okay, you need a motorcycle license, but at first, I don't know what it costs today, but you're definitely out $2,000 for a motorcycle license, right? Then you still need to get the moped. So I can tell you, there were really all kinds of funny conversations and people lending money within the club. Later on, the club even financed motorcycles for others, and then the prospects paid them off in installments. I still remember, Toman asked his parents. At first, he didn't even have a driver's license for cars or motorcycles, and then he hit up his parents saying he wanted to work now and needed to get around somehow. And then they made it possible for him to get a driver's license somehow. You also have to imagine a 25-year-old goes to his mom and dad and says, I need a car and motorcycle license again, and I want to join this motorcycle club. Yeah, what kind of motorcycle club is that, my boy? Yeah, that's the Schar, a 1%er club, which means it operates outside of society's rules and norms. I'm out of the neo-Nazis now, but I'm involved with this now. And there have already been conversations that were kind of amusing within our club, yeah, and then with financing, I don't know, what's the maximum financing for cars or motorcycles? No idea. 7, 8, 9 years. No idea if you can do something like that, but then somehow like a 4,000 euro moped would also be financed with, I don't know, a 37.90 installment, and then over the next 6 years, of course, you could have stepped in and said, hey man, that's okay, what capital did you put in? What is capital anyway? That's how the state was. And on the outside, of course, you always present yourself like, yeah, everything's running, we're doing it, motorcycle club, bikers, as long as we have the symbol on it somehow. And yeah, that was really a complicated journey. What I'm telling you here so quickly, that's definitely 30 meetings and 3,000 phone calls with all kinds of people. Philip, can I talk to you? Yeah, I'd also like to get a motorcycle license. Couldn't you? Couldn't you imagine? The way I got hit up for stuff, I can barely describe here really, often without any hesitation, and like, yeah, you'll definitely get it back for sure, brother. I want to. And then I did, and I already burned my hands a few times with that, and now I had decided not to do it this time. Still, I helped 1 or 2 people and I got it back within the club because it was too important for them not to get kicked out. And then this whole machinery started where you really had to deal with every little thing. If I said before with the comradeship, where was I like a kindergarten teacher, then now I was really... Then I was basically a 24-hour social worker for severely criminal youths, so to speak. So really always talking things through, coordinating, and we always heard he's planning this or that, and then no, please don't do it. And it was just total chaos. But then there were also the great moments, people, the patches, like I said, and then we get the call, the jackets are ready. Yeah, oh, what a call. And then Klaus told me, yo, Klaus, let's go. And I took the car to the shoemaker and we picked up those 12 jackets. And the patches were already sewn on. And for us, it was clear, okay, we need some kind of ceremony ritual. Those are really important for the groups. It bonds everyone together in a circle with all the men, full of testosterone, high-fiving, hitting each other on the shoulders, and welcome to the family, brother, and Black Squad forever, and we support no one. And if I had 2 lives, both would belong to the squad. Guys, that's an incredible power that hits you and makes you say, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to be. That's true brotherhood. That's true friendship. That's how a lot of people look at it. And they write to me and say, wow, that must have been real camaraderie and brotherhood back then. It was a great show, and it's held together by these rituals, by these symbols, by the sayings among each other that after 3 beers and a line of the devil's crap coke, no thanks guys, yeah, the devil's crap, just to talk nonsense forever and say you're the best spirit and secretly always stick together against everyone, and I know like a bullet, okay? So it was clear we had to do something to show the people around us that what you're getting now is something really special, something big and so on. And that's what we organized for ourselves. We did that internally. Of course, we actually would have liked to have a patch party also with other motorcycle clubs and friendly clubs, but we didn't have that at the time. We weren't friends with anyone and nobody liked us and nobody believed that we would even exist for a while or that we would ever gain any acceptance. Now, of course, I had these vests at home, and you know what you do then? You put them on at home. As president, I had all 12 of them lying around at home. Then you would put one on. You stood in front of the mirror, put on a matching Thor Steinar trashy pair of pants. Yeah, posed a bit, posted it, probably with sunglasses, and made a face like ours. Guys, I'm sorry. Hashtag, I can admit to anyone who was ever in these circles themselves that they took these photos where they had the patches or whatever. That definitely happened when no one was around. If not, I'll eat only strange vegetables for a week, drive through in my car, and yeah, the first disappointment still hits you. The first disappointment still hits you, but you keep going. There were people who joined us who had never had group experiences before, and some of them took 2 days just to answer a short message service or WhatsApp. That was something for me. If someone didn't answer me within half an hour, even if I wrote at 3:30 in the morning, I was already, how do you say, at 180. How could they dare? President, yeah. And at night it was still okay, I could get over it, but then there were some who had no idea what they were getting into. That's the case with a lot of people who write about it. They have no idea what kind of structures they're getting themselves into, what it means for them if they don't make it, if they leave. And then I got messages like that from someone, yeah, he was a prospect with us, a friend brought him in, I barely knew him at all. And then a meeting was scheduled and he replied like, I can't leave my dog alone. Huh? Thea, you can't leave your dog alone? Yeah, I got myself a new dog 6 weeks ago, so I can't leave him alone right now. Yeah, ask your girl, she doesn't feel confident enough to do it alone. I'm already so pissed off. Yeah, patches from the 300 he had to pay or something. First he put down a 5 as a deposit. That already pisses you off and you think, dude, what's that about? But all right, first just quantity. Yeah, it'll work out, it'll get better. And the one who brought him in says, yeah, everything's going fine. Okay, good. Yeah, and then they always found nice words for everything. Then at the meeting, it was like, yeah, I didn't mean it that way. I came across wrong and I was stressed at work and my girl doesn't really like it, but I'll get her on board. Those are the kinds of conversations you have in about 1% of the clubs. What do you think is going on there? Do you think they cook their pasta with something different than we do? They use water too, they go to the bathroom just like us. There were so many things that sometimes I just didn't know anymore. I hated the phone even when I just read a message from some of those names, and that was already at the beginning. The club wasn't even half a year old then, we were just about 2 months old or so. And then there was supposed to be this initiation ritual, and then there was already supposed to be the first argument, both internally and the first argument with outsiders. But we're also planning our first big party, and that's when a few more motorcycle clubs will meet. But how it all went on, guys, you know what? I'll tell you about that next time. And as always, I remain with an ahoy from the coast. Thank you very much.